Is this working, yeah? You probably think that my role as president of Hearst International is just one long series of glamorous parties featuring lots of models and champagne. And, well, you're mainly right. But once or twice a year, I try to take myself off to a remote and desolate part of the world and to participate in a sport of adventure racing or mountain marathon running. And these events inevitably take place in a part of the world where the scenery is the same in every direction, and they always schedule these events for a time of the year where the weather is guaranteed to be dreadful and when visibility is incredibly poor. And the result is it's very, very easy to get lost. And as you can see from this picture here, I'm very good at getting lost. And it's fair to say that if you've been in a management role in consumer media over the last few years, you could probably admit quietly to having occasionally that same feeling. There are huge numbers of routes that you could take as you think about navigating your business. But the truth is, you don't really know what's out there. The visibility is poor. But while the landscape in our industry is tricky, the visibility around business models is not great. I think we should actually celebrate the fact that this is perhaps the most exciting time ever to be in the content business. All of the old barriers between us as content producers and our consumers are disappearing in the developed world, but all over the world. And the skills that made all of us and all of you leaders in the communications business for decades are the same skills that will enable us to thrive in this new, mobile, connected world. And at Hearst, listen, despite all of that lack of visibility, and unlike me in that picture in Iceland, you have to choose a route. And we're very clear where we're going. Yes, we're still one of the largest and best and most profitable magazine publishers, print publishers in the world. But if you ask any one of our senior managers about what our strategy is, they'll tell you, we intend to be a digital-first and mobile-first company delivering first-class content around the organizing themes of our famous media brands. But look, it's been obvious to us, and we've discussed it at length in this room and upstairs, that if we're to be successful in our ambition, and most importantly, to be as profitable as we've become used to and are required to be, that we have to subject everything that we do to real examination. Every part of our business, every way that we work has to be reviewed. One example, the traditional distribution models for magazines, which largely have been incentivized subscriptions supplemented by newsstand in the United States and parts of Canada, and incentivized newsstand supplemented by subscription and other distribution elsewhere in the world. You need to rethink these models. You know, lots of people are doing this. The UK is a hotbed of this kind of activity. We there in the UK have given a new price to Cosmo, a much more millennial-friendly price of £1, and we're telling advertisers that we're going to guarantee the circulation that we deliver them, supplementing what we don't sell on the newsstand with freely targeted, distributed copies. And we've also, like many others we've experimented with completely free distribution copies, products like this trending New York, which we've tested over the last 2 years in the USA. And the way that we measure success as an industry has to be relentlessly honest. The popularity of our products in print and in digital and in live, as many of us are in that business too, need to be measured by how much and how many people actually consume them. And we've got a really fantastic story to tell. The introduction of Magazine Media 360 by the MPA 18 months ago was a really important event. This tells the real story of magazine media appeal to consumers across all of our touch points. In the US, in print and digital for now, but in the future, social, very shortly to come in their next release. And why not also in live in the future? You know, the truth is that there are some self-defeating, slightly arcane, self-imposed rules around the way we report the audiences of our products in certain parts of the world. And we just need to throw these all out. And we should teach every sales team. Every sales team should understand how to sell audience, not just circulation. The story is really excellent. For the measured group, audience is actually up 10% year on year. This is the first quarter of this year's results. And we should all be shouting from the rooftop that, and we should start every single sales pitch with the message, audience is up. So all of us, as we've just heard, we're also building our audiences on other platforms, not just our own. And Magazine Media 360 is going to need to adapt to that. We need to keep pace. But I honestly feel that the principle, which is what's behind this, of aggregating trusted third-party data that's already in use in the market, is a fantastic way to start, rather than waiting to try to find the holy grail of some single source, all media, totally global measurement tool. So look, I urge you, and I urge the national associations that represent you, to copy what's been done by the MPA and introduce Magazine Media 360 as soon as possible. They've done it in Spain, and I know that it's immediately changed the way that the conversation about magazine media is held. And I honestly think this is the single most important thing that we can all do for our industry. But let's get back to the question of visibility and what route we should take. You know, at Hearst, like for many other companies, our thinking's been driven by the extraordinary growth of the mobile internet. Maybe after the creation of spoken language and then the printed word, the mobile connected internet, and I think the mobile connected internet rather than the internet itself is the third most significant event in the history of human communication. And we know that these devices, not only highly useful, but they're highly addictive. And the content strategies that companies found so reliable for decades have to change if all of us want to continue to compete for the attention of the mobile generation. And the mobile generation, by the way, it's not really a generation, because my mother is as addicted to her smartphone as my kids are. And you know, the generational issue, you know, what the behavior of millennials is rapidly going to become the behavior of everyone. And if you look around, and at Hearst we've looked around, you can see that there's a new group of companies, not usually the incumbents from the past, that did quickly embrace what the new digital connected consumer wants. And when we look at what is common to those companies, what is required to compete? It seems to us that some or all of these common traits are required. And for the sake of complete transparency at Hearst, as well as transitioning and transforming our own business, we're also investing in companies, and we're an investor in both Vice and BuzzFeed. But the truth is, even if a new company, like many of these, quickly understands what it needs to compete in the mobile digital world, it's very hard for them to replicate what we have, what the people in this room have. We have decades and decades of experience of creating content with a very clear and distinctive voice. In my view, it's absolutely not a given that the brands and companies that will lead in the mobile connected world will all be new. Traditional print-based publishers have enormous advantages if we can make the changes to our businesses that will allow us to compete. And this question of voice, in my mind, in a world of enormous noise, is critical. And at Hearst, we're well on the way with this change in a process that we've called, and you've heard it mentioned, months to moments, which is really a shorthand for a whole bunch of things that we've been doing over the period of time. But probably, the best way the best example of this is, I was in London in July, and in July in London, the team on Good Housekeeping basically spend their time, the editorial print team on Good Housekeeping, spend their time going to events showcasing Christmas. Because this is the time of year when all of the retailers and manufacturers start showcasing their Christmas products, and this is the time of the year when the editors of Good Housekeeping are planning the Christmas and holiday issue of the magazine. And the question that's has been in our minds for a number of years is, how do you create an organization that can do that can produce a brilliantly crafted product for the holiday season, but at the same time service the needs of their readers who that day are thinking about whether it's a nice day to go for a picnic or what factor sunscreen they should pack in their bag for holidays. So Months to Moments is about that transition. Many companies, including us, had a digital strategy 10 years ago where we were extremely good at creating evergreen content that was perfectly optimized for search. And we continue to do that. But we supplement that now with zeitgeisty content that people want to read, of course, that is of the moment, but also want to share with their friends. And we started this whole transformation. We hired a digital disruptor. You heard about Troy Young yesterday. We've hired a whole bunch of other digital disruptors, Gary Ellis, Melinda Lee, who are here today. People coming from the digital background, not coming from print, to really challenge our thinking and to help us along this journey. And we started with Cosmo in the USA in 2014. Now, in digital, I guess like in many things, complexity is the enemy. In technology, in content, and advertising sales. So we've taken at Hearst a single, central, unified approach to product, and we've migrated 18 sites, all the sites in the United States, onto a single platform, which has massively reduced what we saw as rather pointless design variations and dramatically simplified the whole process of production. We decided that decisions that had historically been made at a brand level about product, about UX, about template design, and so on and so forth, had to be made once, and they had to be made for the whole organization to avoid the endless kind of versioning and finding your technology teams engaged in very, very small changes to templates that really don't really add to the performance of the business. And in a mobile world in particular, it's the content that differentiates, not the templates that it sits in. So our view is that to win, and that's what we're in the game of doing, we need to be in control of the whole experience that's presented to the consumer. Honestly, doing what we're doing at Hearst is a very expensive and very time-consuming process, and therefore we only have to do it once. We cannot afford, and nor do we want, to go through this process iteratively for the dozens of brands that we own. So for Hearst Magazines in the USA and around the world, we have a unified approach to everything, which allow us to invest significantly more than we could on a brand-by-brand or country-by-country basis. And look, we've taken exactly the same approach to content. I hope a lot of you heard my colleague Melinda Lee's excellent presentation upstairs. Content belongs to Hearst, not one title or one country. Peter referenced this yesterday. It's critically important. But we also actively encourage our editors to syndicate content from sister editions in other markets. You can read this for yourselves, and from other brands in-house, including from the sites of our newspapers and TV stations. And we also have a central news team that's tasked to produce content that can live on multiple sites right from the start. And then with a single platform and shared approach to content, it allows us to build very powerful tools This is a screen grab of a tool that's integral to our platform. MediaOS is the name of the platform that we've built at Hearst, Media Operating System. And this is much more than just a CMS. This has integrated tools that help to measure the performance of every story that we run, both on our platform and on third-party platforms. It's a live record of every story, of the exact performance metrics in real time, and it allows editors to syndicate directly. They see a story they like, they can syndicate it directly into their website just with the click of a mouse. So, like many of you, one of our great strengths has been brand management, the ability to take a format and to keep it consistent around the world while making it totally relevant to a local audience. But in digital, for various reasons, the truth is we've not really had the same degree of rigor and control about the look and feel of our brands. But a single approach to technology, to product, to UX and design means we can have a consistent brand experience. We can reduce the complexity in operations, which is the enemy of profitability, and get a much better product for our money. And so, we're rolling this months-to-moments approach around the world, and some of you know that for us that means an incredibly complex job. The Hearst network is very complicated. We have a network of owned and operated companies, a multitude of joint ventures and licenses, and we're in the process of rolling our platform and our strategy around the world. We've made a great start in this process particularly with our content strategy and our social strategy, improved in almost every market. And the MediaOS platform is now deployed in 8 countries with a whole slew of further migrations coming before the end of this year. So we see our business as global and as connected. And we're using the footprint that we have around the world and our global editorial resources to help every part of the network. Essentially, whilst resources are inevitably finite, if you work on Cosmo in one market, you should feel, and you do feel, that you have a team that is available to you all around the world, producing content on a 24-hour basis. And the power of this network is really huge. And just one example, because this happens to be one of those parties that I was talking about with models and champagne, we held a party for Harper's Bazaar in September during Fashion Week in New York, where we invited 1,200 of our closest friends and Katy Perry to do a private performance. And of course, this is a huge promotional tool for us. And the power of the network, where we ran the content that was produced that night on 50 sites in 36 countries. We had more than 140 million interactions on Instagram. We had more than 2 billion media impressions overall, and we had obviously the Bazaar team was really happy. We had great press for the event, and of course we had very happy sponsors. So the power of the network, the leverage that we can bring both to editorial stories like this, but also to advertising stories, is huge. So a couple of thoughts just to leave you with. First, we believe as a content producer, we should distribute our content very widely, and you can see what we're doing. Everyone knows about the potential of Facebook and the new Apple News app and so on, but there's much wider than that, because we're a global company, so we're distributing our content on all of the major social networks around the world. You've seen Line, which someone mentioned yesterday, is Russian Odnoklassniki, and Ren in China, and so on and so forth. We believe that we can distribute our content in multiple places. I think the world's changed a little bit. In the old days, we'd distribute our content perhaps in return for audience, and we're much more interested now in distributing in return for money or the right to sell advertising. And I think that the third parties that we're working with recognize that. And it's an interesting example. I think someone mentioned it earlier. We're fortunate to be on the Snapchat Discover tray. both in the United States and in the UK. And this has been a huge, huge new source of audience for us. We're delivering in the United States around 3 million unique visitors are reading and watching the Cosmo content on Snapchat every day. Pretty much the same level of audience as we get on our own platform, cosmopolitan.com. We're free to sell the advertising in this platform. We launched on when the UK version came up as well. We launched there as well with Cosmo. So, we're open to distributed content. And the second thing to leave you with is it's obvious that a digital-only publishing model doesn't have the same kind of infrastructure requirements in local markets that print publishing does. There's less need for that physical infrastructure. And so these are examples where we've launched these sites in markets where we have a small freelance editorial team and absolutely nothing else. We're managing everything else from the center. And it's kind of interesting what you can do in this new world. Anyway, the result of all this work is that we've had a really rapidly growing audience across our network. And whilst this is Google Analytics numbers, you can both see the kind of scale that we're talking about and the rate of growth that we've achieved with our month-to-moment strategy overall for Hearst. And our legacy brand has led the way in this. So Cosmo's global footprint in digital is huge. Interestingly enough, and there's no one here from my Dutch team, but this is what's possible. So we introduced the kind of months-to-moments editorial approach in, I guess, October last year, and we gave them the MediaOS platform, as it was called then, the RAMS platform, just at the end of the year. And this is the result of both the fantastic power of the platform and of the great team that we have in Holland. Bear in mind, that's 3 million unique visitors in a country of, 17 million Dutch speakers. So any young woman who prefers to get their information in Dutch is reading it on cosmopolitan.nl. What I haven't talked about today, because time is short, is the financial results, the power of this, but because it's a whole new presentation. But we're sharing everything that we're doing in terms of platform development. We're making available to advertisers. We have a concept called shared spaces, which means that anything we can do with our editorial offering, we make available to our advertisers, including the audience metrics and so on and so forth. And whilst we're a private company, we're not very public about our financial information. Our digital strategy and our digital advertising business is absolutely on fire. We're reinvesting a lot of that money, of course, like all of you are, but we're very happy with the financial performance of our digital business. So, the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, the future is very bright. There has never been a better time to be in the content business, but the truth is what we do with this great opportunity is up to each and every one of us. Thank you very much.
Will you take a question, if there is one?
If anybody's got one.
Okay. As always, not compulsory. All we need is an ability to catch. If you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll take it now. Doesn't need to. There is one just there, yes. And given timing, sort of relatively brief, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you.
Hi, thanks so much. It was a great presentation. I have one question about the MediaOS. You don't charge your international editions anything for that platform?
Is that right?
Is that
a question or a statement?
I'm asking, do you not charge?
Listen, I think we're rolling MediaOS out around our owned and operated markets to start with. We've actually just implemented it in India, where we do have a joint venture. Look, the reality is it's not free to build these platforms, and so there will be a charge for the platform, but it'll all be wound up in our overall deals. So clearly it's not free to build these, and this is a much more powerful tool than any of these, any companies are going to be able to build and develop on their own locally.
Okay, lovely to get more, but unfortunately we have no time. Can I ask you please to thank Duncan Edwards? Thank you.